Now let us think in terms of visuality, without being philosophical. Just think in terms of what visuality involves. Now, any visuality, for that matter, if I were to use a word, is inclusive. Inclusive of the viewer. No visuality would be without a viewer, because if there is a visuality in abstraction, and if there is no inclusion of the viewer, it enters into a realm quite different. Then the kind of visuality, either intervisuality or the kind of interactive, whatever visuality that you are talking about. Now, if there is an inclusion of the viewer, where is the viewer? Who is the viewer? Where does the viewer come from? Is there an abstract viewer? At one level, one would imagine that there would be an abstract viewer, but a step further, you might come to the point where you would see that there cannot be, and there is nothing like an abstract viewer. It has to be a viewer who is perhaps in some way defined. Now, defined not in terms of, person, but defined in terms of one who receives it. So, every visuality, in fact, not only is inclusive of the viewer, but anticipates a viewer. Now, such an anticipation would also mean that you have a variety of options in front of you. Since we are talking in very general terms, would it also mean that at any stage, if it gets defined, would at any stage be specified? Can it come closer to, some kind of a specificity? What kind of a specificity that you could perhaps imagine? And in that sense, one would, if were to go a little further, to think aloud, is that every visuality is not only inclusive, not only of the viewer, but of a specific viewer. Now, in that sense, interactive, the very idea of interaction is incorporated within visuality. It's not outside it. So you are specifying it, there is a kind of a presence of the viewer within the visuality that you are talking about. It's not something or somebody who is outside it. It's not exclusive. And in that sense, you are defining a role. Okay, if I were to make such a statement, and if you were to take, let's say, either images or the images that one makes, can one make a personal, let us say, statement? What does one do when one makes an image? If you are an artist or whoever you are, in what way is the viewer inclusive of what you are making? At a certain level, if your process of mind is, which is, let us say, it is multidimensional, which it is, because as I would say that often I have felt that, okay, I am doing something and an image comes to my mind and I pick up my whatever brush or a pen or pencil and I draw. I have not every time, but a number of times noticed that between the two falls, as T.S. Eliot say, shadow. that there is something that happens between the two. It is not a reproduction. It's not something which appeared or which occurred and then was transferred, or that it came. It often sometimes get totally, what would I say, at one level transformed, at other level even subverted. Now every time you pick up that, and if that image recurs, it is not necessary that that image would again reappear. At times images disappear. And images, we do not know where they go. If there are a realm of images, we do not know if there is any such thing. But the thing is that there is a conjuring. Now, the human mind has the capacity to conjure. And you do, in fact, at some point of time, conjure a specific image. But no specific image is defined until it is really, it finds a form. And what is that form? That form that comes, whatever on paper, through which you wish to return. In fact, it is almost an impossible task, to see the image and to return to, I am talking about the artist, I am not talking about the viewer. But the thing is that it is impossible to return to the state in which that was conjured. It becomes whatever that is on paper, that the form that arrives, it has its own existence. And it establishes its existence far more physically than the image that was conjured. What happened to artists? Artists sometimes look at their work, and I do know some cases in which, even if I speak of myself, I don't recognize them. It's quite unusual at times, to be able to even return, but it is not possible. Often it is not possible. Now, in one sense, you become a viewer. You are no longer the maker. The moment you have made it, your role changes. And the role, varies with which viewer. Is it an external viewer? The viewer with it is sitting outside, or the viewer which was within you? And then if that viewer was within you, was that viewer present while you were making it? Or was that viewer present while you were conjuring it? So what is the viewer? You as viewer, along with all other viewers, makes it a kind of almost, at one level, those who wish to categorize would find it frustrating, because there would be no way in which you would be able to present a kind of a coherent kind of a whatever explanation, because every time you view, every time you conjure, every time you view when you are outside, every time you view with other viewers, it changes. So which visuality are we talking about? We are perhaps at point of time we are talking about the visuality of the moment. And no moment is also singular. Every moment is replete with, I would say every moment is a pregnant moment. There is no moment which is independent on its own. There is. So what are those areas? So in that sense, what happens is that every time you confront an image, there is a kind of a, what shall we say, the meeting of the viewer, as I would put it this way, that every image views the viewer, and then the viewer, and if that happens between the two, then all our discourses are literally floating, in between. And they remain in that sense in a kind of a something like, what shall I say? Since I have used the word pregnant, I would even say it is like a placenta. And that you are floating into that. And so, in that sense, the visuality, is a very potent term. And that one could literally sort of delve into perhaps a series of readings. There is never a singular reading. It's only a reading that I make at that particular point of time. Now when you look, you are also reading it. And when you read, you also configure it. Or despite yourself, the imagery within which you are, let us say, entering, begins to configure itself. And what are the configurations? The configurations that appear at that point of time might be of the type, which may perhaps be part of that, the kind of imagery which is potent or pregnant enough to generate.